Hi, I'm Josh, and I'm so grateful that you have decided to spend some of your valuable time with me as I go through the 25 questions book tag. Now, as there are 25 questions to get through, let's not waste any time and get right into it here. Question 1 is, what's your channel about? And dang it, booktube tag, you already got me with the first question. What is my channel about? In fact, I think one of the reasons I have had very little success in over 4 years on booktube here is I haven't had a real strict focus on my channel. When you go to my playlists section of my channel, you'll see there are in fact 13 different playlists, and they are in order of most videos to fewest. We have board games, books, just plain fun, music, behind the scenes, family fun, serious discussions, paramedic issues and stories, language, minis painting, tattoo talk, Magic the Gathering, and art and artists. So essentially, my channel is whatever makes me happy to talk about. If I was really striving for success, like I said, I would be laser focused on a particular topic, but I just want to be happy and enjoy myself here on YouTube and hopefully pass along some of that happiness to you in the process. So I guess that's really what my channel is about. Question 2, how old are you? Now, this is one of 2 questions on this list that I want your input on. So, how old do you think I am? Put a guess in the comments below and I will tell you what my actual age is if you do so. And now, don't do it right away because there's one other question coming up where I want your input too, but we'll save that one for later. Question 3, what's your relationship status? Again, booktube with the hard-hitting tag questions. My wife of 15 years left me in early 2020, just before the pandemic kicked off. And I'm currently going through a legal separation and divorce process, and it's just killing me, and it's been awful, and I can't even describe how much it's torn me up. But I guess my relationship status is single. Question 4, did you go to college/occupation? So, way back in the mid-90s, I decided I was going to become a paramedic, and at the time the paramedic program was called the Ambulance and Emergency Care Program, and it was just 1 year of college. As a result, most people did at least a year of pre-health sciences in college before doing the ambulance program, but I think because I had done really well in high school, I had really succeeded academically, I was the only one in my class that year who was accepted right into the ambulance program straight out of high school. So I did my 1 year of college, and then I got out there and started working on ambulances as a paramedic at the age of 20. However, after 16 years or so on the job, a combination of physical health problems caused by Crohn's disease and mental health problems centered around PTSD ended up putting me on disability, and so that's the situation I'm in now, unfortunately, and embarrassingly. Question 5, where are you from/live? I was born and raised in London, Ontario, Canada. I lived there for about the first 20 years of my life before moving up north to start my paramedic career. I still live in southern Ontario at the moment. All I'll say is I'm about an hour west of Toronto. Question 6, looking back, what would you have told your 10-year-old self? Golly, that's a tough one. I did not have the greatest childhood. It was filled with illness, with the Crohn's disease and abuse, and just, it wasn't fun times. I wish I could tell myself at that age that it would get better, but it's been one thing after the other. I don't even know what I would tell my 10-year-old self. Maybe be careful with relationships. I don't know. I don't even like this question. Question 7, tell us about your family. Well, I have 2 boys. My older boy is Evan Drake. My younger boy is Wyatt Phoenix, and they are my world. So that's my little family at the moment. Question 8, what's your favorite holiday? Again, this is tough because with my family being broken up now, holidays are a depressing time for me. They're so hard. I guess if I had to pick one, I used to probably enjoy Christmas the most, but now it's just all so dang hard. Question 9, you have no budget. What is your dream vacation? I think I would want to go to the Mediterranean and go snorkeling in the Mediterranean, visit some Mediterranean countries that have all this amazing history, but mostly just enjoy warmth and water and relaxation, I think. Question 10, name your biggest pet peeves. I copied and pasted the questions that are listed here, and I decided not to correct this one because it totally fits in with one of my pet peeves, which is grammar and punctuation. People who don't know how to use apostrophes. People who write would of and could of instead of would have and could have. Just the general level of illiteracy, even among adults nowadays, kind of drives me crazy, which is pretty silly because the whole goal of language is to be able to communicate with each other. And let's face it, this stuff doesn't necessarily interfere with an ability to communicate. I know what people are saying, but for some reason, that stuff drives me bonkers. So 11, what book changed your life? I gotta say, there's not really a book that changed my life. But if I had to pick a book or books that have a lot of life wisdom in them, let me just duck down to my nonfiction section for a moment. I would say that my very favorite books across all genres of books are Kurt Vonnegut's collections of essays and speeches that are to be found in books such as A Man Without a Country, Palm Sunday, Armageddon in Retrospect, Wampeter's Foma and Granfalloons, and Fate's Worse Than Death. If you read any books that I recommend to you, let it be one of these collections of nonfiction writing from Kurt Vonnegut. They are written in the simplest, most understandable prose, yet they contain the most profound wisdom, and I can't recommend them highly enough. Question 12, what simple invention improved the world? I'm gonna go with the flush toilet. I have Crohn's disease, and with my life having sort of fallen apart on me over the past several years with losing my career, losing my wife and all that, I've looked at these other YouTubers who live the van life and who are kind of just on the road in RVs and vans and stuff and think about what that kind of lifestyle would be like. But it always comes back to, for me, not having access to a flush toilet. There's just something about that invention that's so important to me. And that goes hand in hand with toilet paper, specifically Charmin Ultra Soft. So those two things for somebody with Crohn's disease are highly important. Question 13, favorite movies/TV shows. It's been a long time since I've watched movies or TV shows. I guess I used to do so on a regular basis some years ago. If I had to pick favorite movies though, I would go with Snatch and other Guy Ritchie films like Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, and one I watched most recently was called The Gentleman, I think. There's something about his style that I really enjoy that's kind of quirky and out there and different. I also really enjoy the Lord of the Rings movie adaptations. I thought they did just an amazing job with those. Let's not talk about the Hobbit stuff, we're just talking about the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Those were amazing. As far as TV shows go, how about I say this? I was actually on a TV show. I was on a show called Wipeout Canada, which obviously was the Canadian version of a competition show called Wipeout. Of the tens of thousands of Canadians that applied to be on the show, I was one of the ones chosen for season 1 to be on the show. And I was actually on season 1, episode 5 of Wipeout Canada, where I bombed. I did terribly. I was one of the, I think, 4 people who were eliminated in the first round of obstacle courses. And the character I played for the TV show was Mosh Josh, the punk paramedic. So I had a green mohawk and this kind of fake paramedic uniform. And the show announcers made some cracks about my response time hopefully being better in the ambulance than I was doing on the obstacle course. But I was flown to Argentina for a week just to film that little bit that I was on the TV show there. So that was quite a fun experience, just hanging out in Buenos Aires, drinking $3 bottles of wine and seeing the sights of the city there. So that was my one experience being on TV. Question 14, describe yourself using 3 fictional characters. This was a little bit tough. I had to kind of put some thought into it, and what I came up with was Caius Crispus, or Crispin, who is the main character of Guy Gavriel Kay's Sarantine Mosaic duology. He's somebody who lost his family to the plague, and he's having to negotiate loss and grief and moving forward in the world. And he's also an artist. He's a mosaicist specifically, so he's also grappling with the role of art in his life in terms of leaving a legacy in the world, as well as the role of art in society at large. And he's an interesting character. I chose for my second one Gus Orviston from a book called The River Wye by David James Duncan. He was a character who was just struggling to come to grips with the modern world. He sort of moved into a cabin in the woods by himself and spent his days fishing. I personally don't enjoy fishing, but I do enjoy being by a river out in the woods. And he just wanted to disconnect, I think, from the modern world. And then my third one is Captain John Yossarian from Catch-22. He's another one who is in a situation where he just doesn't fit in. It just feels so absurd to him. He's a soldier in the Second World War, and when he sees the command structures and the systems that he's a part of, none of it makes sense to him, whether it's the military command or religion itself or these other kind of human constructed systems that are so absurd in their own ways. And he can't really figure out how humanity's gotten to that point, I think. So I guess these three misfits and outcasts are how I would describe myself. Question 15, what was your dream job? And I guess I'm going to be a little bit cliche here and go with punk rock superstar. If I could do anything in the world, I'd be a vocalist in a punk band and tour in a band and scream my heart out every night. I guess that would be my ideal job. Question 16, if magic was real, what spell would you learn first? And I think I would learn a healing spell. As somebody who has lived with illness my entire life, like I mentioned, with the Crohn's disease, with mental health struggles and PTSD, depression, anxiety, all that stuff, if I could have healing, not just for myself, but for others who struggle in similar manners, that would be an amazing thing. And I guess I sort of did that in my career as a paramedic to a certain extent, but there were so many times where we failed to make a difference, where people died and our efforts just weren't enough. So having the magic of healing, I think, would be cool. Before we go on to the next question, let me just take a real quick second to thank my Patreon supporters, especially my higher tier supporters, Joanna, Asmondas Perfect, Paul, and Mojo Dam. It is so cool to have people out there who've got my back, who are willing to support me financially, even if it's just a couple bucks a month. It's the gesture of it that really hits me in the heart, and I'm so grateful for that. If you're willing to throw a couple bucks a month my way too, just check out Josh Yaks on Patreon and you can find me there. But thank you so much to those who have done so. Now, question 17. 17 says, share a favorite childhood memory. And as I mentioned earlier, my childhood was pretty rough. Wasn't a good time, wasn't something I'd want to go back to. But I think what I'll do is maybe share my favorite childhood book, which was Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. It is a book of a young boy who gets work on a ship, and it turns out this ship gets taken over by pirates and who are off in search of a treasure on an island, and so it becomes this whole pirate story. And there was something about this boy being in a situation with the pirates that really resonated to my young self, and so that's why it was my favorite book as a child. It'd be interesting to go back and reread it to see what I thought about it now. It's been many years since I read it, but at the time it was definitely my favorite. Question 18, what is your favorite social media platform and why? I don't use social media at all, unless you count YouTube as social media. I literally don't use anything else, although I thought that it might be cool to add a level to my Patreon where I have a private Instagram account that Patreon supporters can be part of, and where I might post what I'm currently working on in terms of videos and my YouTube stuff. And so I actually signed up for Patreon, and it told me I had to wait less than 24 hours for the account to become activated. So at about the 24-hour point, I tried to log in and it didn't work. I tried a couple more times, and then Instagram told me that I had violated the terms of service of Instagram and that I was locked out of my account. And I'm like, locked out of my account? I haven't even signed in successfully to my new account. How can I possibly be locked out of it already? So they made me post an image of me holding a sign that had a code on it and my name in the efforts of getting re-established with my account. And as far as I know, that's all up in the air, but I think I'm currently locked out of Instagram, not having used it even once yet. So that's my experience with social media, and I just despise social media and everything it stands for. It's really made a mess of our society and our kids, I think. But I won't go on a long rant. I'll move on to question 19, which is, if you could pick any book character, who would you spend the day with? And for this one, I picked Sam Gamgee just because he's one of my favorite characters in fiction literature. There's just something about his loyalty, his quiet strength, his perseverance. I really admire Sam as a character, and I would love to just spend a quiet day with Sam in the Shire, in the countryside. Maybe sitting in his garden, drinking some tea, maybe not talking a lot, but just hanging out and getting to know him a little bit better. I think that would be cool. Question 20, what's your spirit animal? This is a question I struggled with, and this is the other one where I need your input. So previously I said post below to guess my age, but when you guess my age, also tell me what spirit animal best represents me. And so I was trying to think, what is an animal that is fairly quiet and gentle, but if deliberately provoked can be dangerous, and is an animal that just wants all the other animals to be kind to one another and get along, and yet who is forced to be a loner because he's never fit in with any of the other animals, really. So he's just kind of generally done his own thing. What animal springs to mind when I describe something like that? I'm curious to know, but I thought, if one thing can tell me what my spirit animal is, it's the internet. So I searched on the internet and came up with a few quizzes that are what is your spirit animal quizzes, and I did a few of them, and here's what I came up with. The results of the first quiz I took stated that I was a deer of all things, and what it said was, when you have the deer as spirit animal, you are highly sensitive and have a strong intuition. By affinity with this animal, you have the power to deal with challenges with grace. You master the art of being both determined and gentle in your approach, which I guess is fairly accurate. And then I did the next quiz, and the next one came up with an eagle, and it said, freed from the usual constraints, the eagle is independent, bold, and free. This is the spirit animal for those who are not held back by the expectations of others, and who would like to be able to pick up and go at a moment's notice. Eagles are loyal to their family and mate for life, but they're not looking to be tied down. They're trying to find someone to fly free with them. Sounds pretty good too. But then the third one and final one was maybe less positive. It came up with the honey badger. And for that one it said, you get your way no matter what, because you're the toughest animal out there. Other people might have feelings, but they don't concern you in the slightest because you are in charge. Everyone better bow. You're the HBIC, head badger in charge. Not so sure about that one. I don't think I'm that quite aggressive or really interested in structures of leadership in terms of being in charge of people. But anyways, do comment below, guess my age, tell me which spirit animal you think best describes me. Moving on to 21, what old person thing do you do? And for this one I said, I go to bed before 10 p.m. almost every night. One of the biggest struggles I deal with my chronic illnesses is chronic fatigue, and I'm always just so tired by the end of the day. And it doesn't mean I get up early either. I tend to go to bed early and sleep late and sleep a long time because my body just needs that, unfortunately. It means that I have fewer hours in the day to get things done than most people do, but I need the sleep, which is why I'm typically in bed between 9 and 10 p.m. every night. Question 22, do you have a hidden talent? And I do have some hidden talents, one of which is that I can say the alphabet backwards as quickly as I can say it forwards. So let's do it now without any edits and looking just directly into the camera lens here, so you know I'm not cheating. ZYXWV UTSRQPONMLKJIHGFEDCBA. That's the alphabet backwards, and through the power of editing I might be able to actually turn that backwards and see if I got it correct. So do it now. Alright, let's hope that I was able to edit that properly. Question 23, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Another tough question, considering that the past several years have been a steady decline with the things I've lost in my life and the way that being on disability and chronically ill has taken me here. The question isn't where do I want to be in 5 years, it's where do I see myself in 5 years. So I think that if I can get to 5 years from now and be in roughly the same place I am now and no worse, then that'll probably be a win for me. Question 24, share an item and tell us its significance. I think there's really only one thing I own that is of any value to me, and let me just grab that here. This is a board game, and it's a rather enormous board game called War of the Ring. Before Gloomhaven came along, this was my very favorite board game of all time, and several years ago, quite a few years ago now, they came out with a collector's edition of this game. It came in a huge, beautifully carved wooden box and had all the painted figures and everything else. And I purchased that game for something like 500 bucks. But then I ended up on disability, we were in real financial trouble, and I was sitting on this game which in the secondary market over time had gotten to a value of $2,000. So I'm like, as much as I love this thing, I can't sit on a $2,000 item when we're struggling financially, so I had to sell it. But then some years later, they came out with the anniversary edition, which was very similar to the collector's edition in terms of having all the painted figures and stuff like that, all that cool stuff. But it didn't come in the really fancy wooden box, just kind of a nice cardboard box here. So I was so happy to be able to purchase the anniversary edition after having to sell the collector's edition. And so this game means a lot to me. It's still my second favorite game of all time after Gloomhaven. But it's heavy as heck, so I'm gonna put it down. All right, the 25th and final question says, now tag some people. I've completely lost track of who has done this tag and who hasn't because I watch so many booktubers and try to support as many small booktubers as I can. So I'm going to list several names, and if people have done it already, they can ignore it. If they haven't, maybe they can feel free to do this if they want to. So I'll tag Steph from Steph's Bookish World, Dan from Treebeard Book Reviews, Yolene from Yolene Reads, Steve from Steve Talks Books and Stuff, Sam from The Teapot Reads, and Diana from Diana in the Nook. If any of you feel like doing this video, feel free to do so. And if you, dear viewer, are watching this tag and going, man, I wish somebody would tag me, I really want to do this, consider yourself tagged by Josh Yaks. You are tagged to go ahead and do this, and when you do so, post your link below so I can check out your video, because I think this is a really interesting tag. I do love to get to know people a little bit better and sort of get to know the person behind the booktuber outside of a directly books setting, as it were. So please consider yourself tagged if you want to do it. All right, I'm looking forward to seeing your comments about how old you think I am and about what spirit animal you think I should be. And I'm excited to chat with you again soon. Catch you later. The preceding video has been brought to you free of charge by me, Josh. The only thing I ask in return is that you could do one of the following. Give me a thumb up, push the subscribe button, or share the link to this video with somebody who you think would enjoy it. Cheers. I copied... Before we go on to question 17, let me just thank my